welcome aboard. I'm Keisha, your flight attendant.
And I'm Mark. I'm your pilot.
And together we're your favorite aviation couple and host of Flight Decks and Jump Seats.
A podcast that doubles as your passport to the world of aviation and travel from the lens of a couple who share a passion for flying.
With over 10 years combined, we'll share stories, insights, and our passion for all things aviation. From chasing waterfalls in Costa Rica to petting tigers in Thailand. We'll take you on a vicarious voyage.
Don't trip. We still got you covered on travel tips, and we'll answer all your aviation-related questions.
So fasten your seatbelts as you immerse yourself in our world of aviation.
So, prepare for departure. We've been cleared for takeoff for a journey with flight decks and jump seats.
Okay, so welcome.
Welcome, guys.
Hi, guys.
What's going on?
This is our first episode. We are so glad to finally be recording this.
Numero uno.
Pilot episode for flight decks and jump seats. No pun intended. So we'll start with just an introduction of who we are.
Is it really no pun intended, or is it like all the puns intended?
You know what? Anyways. So here we just want to introduce ourselves and kind of tell you more about what to expect, who we are, like why did we do this podcast, why aviation, just all the questions that people probably are dying to know. So for those of you that don't actually know us and who are just listening to this for the first time, my name is Keisha and I am a flight attendant for almost 10 years now. I've worked in both commercial and corporate aviation. So I've seen both sides of the spectrum. If you don't know, if you know, you know. And yes, so that's who I am. I am from Connecticut. I went to school in New York where I met Mark.
Which we actually didn't go to the same school.
We didn't go to the same school.
We'll get into that. But yes, so I was born and raised in Connecticut to Jamaican parents. Went to school in New York. Went to St. John's University, Red Storm. I was a cheerleader. If you know, you know. And yeah, I met Mark. And then I always loved aviation. So, you know, because my parents are both from Jamaica, we traveled back and forth a lot. But even just besides Jamaica, it was more so just I love change. I love seeing new places. I love the thought of adventure. We could be taking a trip to Six Flags or just a summer road trip, and I was excited about it. So for me, I just fell in love with adventure. And I think that's kind of where like travel was just a part of that. Like we can be going to a state away and I would be excited about that. So it was just something that I innately loved doing, was traveling, exploring, seeing new places. But the pivotal moment for me was when it was right after 9/11, go figure, but people would probably think like, why would that make you want to become a flight attendant? But for me, it was exciting because we had a family vacation going to Florida during, like, I want to say it was the week of or the week after 9/11. I have to figure it out. But nonetheless, it was around 9/11. It had just happened. People were not flying. And it was just chaos, especially living in very close proximity to New York. I basically was there. I'm like right over the bridge. So if you know the tri-state area, you know that like if you were in that tri-state area on 9/11, like I was pulled out of school. It was very hectic. I still have a lot of family that live in New York. So like it was very scary, and cell phones and Wi-Fi and all that stuff did not exist. So very scary times. So the fact that like it did exist.
Well, when I say exist,
it wasn't as easy accessible.
It wasn't as okay. Yeah, let me not date myself. Like I'm not that old, guys. I'm not that old. But around 9/11, phones existed, but like the service, there wasn't a lot of towers. Right. There wasn't a lot of Wi-Fi service. Like
and having a cell phone as an elementary kid was not a thing.
Right. I was like 9. I was 9 years old.
If you asked for a cell phone, it was like, what do you need a cell phone for?
Right. Like, who are you? Like,
no.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not buying you a cell phone.
I feel like I still had a box TV in my house.
9 years old, 10 years, roughly. I think that's what, not going to date ourselves again, but.
It's 2001.
2000. Well, yeah, we
22
did.
22 years ago.
Right. We already dated ourselves.
Woo!
So 2001, that was like the transition with
satellite TV.
Yeah.
Like satellite TV was
Yes.
coming into late
Like Dish
90s,
Network.
going into
Yes.
cable TV and stuff like
Yes.
that.
Ooh,
So it's possible that we still had antennas. Like antennas were still working back then.
like, do we look our age though? Because you would not know. Like, I mean, I'm just saying. Anyways, so
Just doing a little bit of math.
my brother and I were on the plane with my mother, and the flight crew was super super nice to us because it was literally like our family and like maybe one other family on board, and that was it. And it was on a wide body plane. I remember it very vividly. It was a wide body plane. We were going from JFK to Fort Lauderdale, and it was a dual. So wide body meaning like dual aisle plane. So it was a really big plane that you
To go to Fort Lauderdale?
Yes.
Wow.
I think because New York to Florida was like such a popular route that they needed like
Or like a Miami. And
right.
yeah,
It needed
okay.
bigger. We might even have flown into Miami. It might have been Miami, but I remember we stayed in Fort Lauderdale because the wedding. We were going to a family wedding.
Gotcha.
The wedding was in Fort Lauderdale, so we might have flown into Miami. I don't remember all the details. My mom might be able to tell you. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make is it doesn't matter where I went. It was a point that I remember the day very vividly because we were flying and the flight crew was so nice to us. They brought us into the cockpit. Gave us chocolates. The flight attendants were glad that we were there. They were just really, really nice. And it's really odd because it literally was after 9/11.
I was just thinking the same thing. Like, it's kind of odd that now and today you can't go to the cockpit during cruise.
No.
But 2 days, 3 days after 9/11.
I don't even think it was that close because I feel like they didn't have any flights. Flights were grounded probably for that whole, because I feel like 9/11 was like on a Tuesday or something like that. It was a midweek. I feel like the rest of that week flights were grounded, but maybe the following week, 9/11, like flights were still operating, but it was a very limited schedule.
Yeah, but it was still close to.
It was very close.
The day.
Very, very close. And I just remember getting chocolates. I remember the flight crew being really nice. I remember there being an empty plane. It was like literally like no one on the plane. And I was like, wow. And it was a big plane. So I was like, oh my God. Anyways, vivid memory. So ironically, 9/11 or the experience I had post 9/11 is what was the pivotal moment for me, where even in a state of fear and chaos, the flight crew still showed up and still tried to make a child's day or try to create a safe environment and welcoming environment for their passengers. And for me, that meant a lot. To come to work with the fear that it may be your last day, or the fear that like someone on this plane could take your life. To me, that was admirable. So at that young age, I looked up to them and I was like, wow, I want to be able to create that experience. And to this day, I think about like whenever 9/11 comes around, I do remember that tragic day in history, but I also think about how that flight crew showed up for work that day and still made their best effort to make a child's day that I will remember it 22 years later. So
you would say that they were like almost real life heroes.
like, oh yeah, pretty much like
Inspirational
they were
heroes.
very inspirational to me because I felt safe. I wasn't afraid. I've always been like an adventurous child, so like that's just me. But I felt extra safe knowing that my mom was a little nervous and like my brother, he acts cool, but like I know deep down he probably was a little nervous too. But like my mom being like a little nervous to fly, because we were gonna miss a family wedding, but it was like, well, we could either stay home and know that we're not gonna get on the plane and most likely be safe, or get on the plane and take a risk and go spend time with family. So I think like seeing how my face lit up and seeing how excited I was to fly made my mom's day also, because she was like, you know what, like look how happy my child is. And I think that was a day and I said, I want to be a flight attendant, or I want to do what they do, or or just looking in admiration. I wish that we had a photo or a picture to look back at that moment, because it really lives rent free in my head. So
I mean, you never know if you're listening to this podcast or watching this and this sounds like this could have been you working that trip. Let us know.
Or even if you were in the airport that day.
Let us know. You could have been the pilot.
So,
you could have been the flight attendant.
Well, I was saying before too. So when we got to the airport, I don't remember all the details, but I do remember that our flight canceled and we ended up being put on another flight. And that's why the plane was a big plane. I don't think the original plane was supposed to be a wide body. I think the crew just didn't show up to work that day, and the flight canceled because it was post 9/11. And we ended up being put on another flight. And that's why the plane was a big plane. I don't think the original plane was supposed to be a wide body. I think the crew just didn't show up to work that day, and the flight canceled because it was post 9/11. And and we ended up being put on another flight. And that's why the plane was a big plane. I don't think the original plane was supposed to be a wide body. I think the crew just didn't show up to work that day, and the flight canceled because it was post 9/11. And we ended up being put on another flight. And that's why the plane was a big plane. I don't think the original plane was supposed to be a wide body. I think the crew just didn't show up to work that day, and the flight canceled because it was post 9/11. And
they had to find like a replacement, and they had to basically use a wide body flight
Got you. Okay.
plane with the wide body crew to work the flight.
Got you.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So anyways, long story short, that is why I got into aviation. That's why I fell in love with travel, and I knew from literally that moment that I was going to be a flight crew member. And I remember going into high school looking up like jobs, like, okay, how do I get into this industry? Like, I don't know anyone who's in the industry. I'm not really familiar with how to get into it. Which funny story, like I actually found out that my aunt, like my distant aunt, has been a flight attendant for like 30 years. Didn't find this out until I actually became a flight attendant, and I just don't know why families do that, because I'm like, she could have been such a great guide for me, but nonetheless, I still met her after I became a flight attendant. Um, yeah, I hope that answers. Was that everything? Like who I am, how we met, which
well,
we'll go into
we didn't
that.
get that. Yeah, but I mean,
And why aviation? Yeah,
who this is?
I hope that
That
wasn't too
answers
long.
your why aviation.
Yeah, I mean, I
what made
fell
you
in
get
love.
into it?
Yeah.
So before we get into my why, why don't you tell them a little bit more about who you are, what it is that you do now in aviation,
Okay. So
and the things you do, maybe do a little bit outside of aviation.
okay, sure.
Yeah.
So again, your girl Keisha. Who am I? So I am currently a corporate flight attendant. I'm also the CEO and founder of Jetsecutive, which is a global community and platform that helps find balance for people who work in aviation. My goal for Jetsecutive was to provide a resource for aviation professionals to find balance in their work field. So, like, I know that I've struggled with a lot of things like scheduling conflicts and being able to like work out on my layovers and find time to rest and do all these different things before, during, and after my flight. And so I took some time to really pour into myself and realize that, you know what, if I'm going through these issues, if I'm finding a hard time working out, or if I'm finding a hard time like balancing the schedules, or like showing up for myself, my family, my friends, my partner, like I can't be the only one like struggling with this. Like if I can't figure out my schedule, I know that my schedule fluctuates. Also, we work in aviation. If you work in aviation, you know that no 2 days are the same. Like you're always gonna have an exciting day, but it's also not gonna be a 9 to 5. It's not gonna be the same. And there's nothing wrong with people who work 9 to 5s. However, you kind of expect the same thing every day. You wake up the same time, you come home the same time. You pretty much do the same kind of duties. And yes, our job duties may kind of have a format to it and a structure to it. But in terms of our workday, we're literally seeing new faces every single time. We're not going to the same office to see the same coworkers and the same things that we can discuss. Like we're pretty much going to work with new faces, new passengers. Even if you work with the same crew, you're still, I highly doubt you're going to have the same passengers twice in the same week or in the same month. So, yeah, I feel like because of the constant, unprecedented changes and lifestyle of an aviation professional, like a flight attendant or a pilot, that I needed to provide something for us where we have to pour into ourselves. You know, we pour into our passengers, we serve our passengers, we always ensure that everyone else is good around us besides ourselves. So now it's our turn. So that is why I started Jetsecutive. It is a global community. If you haven't already, you could check us out on Instagram. We also have an app that's linked in the bio there. I'll also put that in the show notes so you guys can learn more about it. But it's for my flight crew. It's for my people who are on the road all the time. You know, this is for you. This is for us. And I'm really, really excited about it. So I hope that you guys support that, follow it. Like we have a lot in store, and I can't wait to like just meet everyone that's in this group. So that's me. That's me.
That's Keisha.
Yeah.
It's Keisha.
Yes.
Well,
so tell them about yourself, Mark.
I wasn't always involved in aviation as a career. I always enjoyed it. I liked it. Uh, Looking at planes, the idea of flying. Like whenever I grew up, everybody would always ask, oh, what's your favorite superpower? And I would be like, I would love to fly. Like just be able to fly places.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that was like super speed and teleport, so that way I could go to other places quickly. But I never thought that it was something that I could really do. And I think a part of that is representation. The other part of it is uh barrier to entry, which we could talk about. But loved planes. Remember growing up in my visiting my grandmother's house in Queens and watching the planes go over the house, like as they're coming into JFK. Like it was just so low you could literally see the rivets on the bottom of the plane. So things like that always fascinated me. My brother and I, we grew up playing Microsoft Flight Simulator, but it was always just like it's a fun thing, it's a cool thing. Always loved it, but never thought about getting into it as a career as a pilot up until
Me.
well, before that, um, I considered it when I was going to transfer schools in college. So I was transferred to Farmingdale, and it was like, what am I going to do? I was supposed to be a pharmacist, didn't want to do that. Then it was between becoming an engineer and becoming a pilot. The thing that threw me off was I would have to spend an extra 2 to 3 years in school, plus pay extra for my flight training on top of the tuition for getting my degree. And I was like, the entry level pay back then was maybe 30,000-40,000 for pilots, if that. So I didn't see it as a financially feasible. When I could go get my engineering degree, not spend the extra time in school, not spend the extra money, and I can start out probably making somewhere close to six figures. So I decided to become an engineer. So I went to school, graduated, got my engineering degree. Asked me if I became an engineer.
Did you become an engineer?
According to my degree, I did.
So the answer is?
The answer is I never got a job as an engineer.
Gotcha.
I never pursued a job as an engineer.
It's not too late.
It's not. But in hindsight, if I did actually get in a plane and tried to, took an intro flight back then, I would have become a pilot. I would have. But how's that saying go? Hindsight is 2020.
If that's, I don't know if that's the saying, but I think everything happens for a reason, and I think
Yes, it
that
does.
the way your path flows is literally divine intervention.
But yeah, so fast forward, I ended up starting a business. I learned how to work on cars. My dad, growing up, and decided to start a business. Well, take over a business, but expand it, become a mechanic, had a shop. Unfortunately, I lost that business due to a fire, and it brought me back to the point of, what am I going to do? And at that point, we were already together with 4 years. Yeah, 4 years, almost 4 years. So don't look at me like that.
I'm about to say, you could have just left that out so you didn't have to embarrass
Saying I
yourself.
had to embarrass myself.
Lola, you are really scaring me right now. Come here. 'Cause
She's being Lola the Explorer. And back under the couch she goes.
Okay.
So, what am I going to do? Right? And that's when we were trying to figure things out. I was trying to get the business back together. And then you had got the offer.
Prior to that, I mentioned that there was a pilot shortage because I was interested in this.
Yes.
So, really quick snippet about Keisha. Keisha has been wanting to be a pilot for years now. And I thought about doing it in 2020 when I got furloughed from my major U.S. carrier that I worked for at the time. And I looked into the same thing like Mark was talking about, where it's like, the cost of flight training, the time constraint, or not even constraint, the time it would take to actually go to school, the investment that you're making. And at the time, even though 2020 was literally only 3 years ago, pilots were not making that much starting out. Like I met a lot of pilots who were making a lot of good money, but that's after working like
20 years and going up to like the wide body captain position. So, just we'll get into this in another
Right.
episode, but like, to get there, it takes a
And
long time and it's very discouraging.
that's 10, 20 years after spending
Mm-hmm.
the last 5 to 7 years
Yeah. Yeah.
working a full-time job, trying to get your license and your ratings and building your time.
Mm-hmm.
And
And during a pandemic, that just doesn't sound, I mean, it doesn't sound good at all, but like during a pandemic when you're like,
well,
I don't
and the
know,
whole
like,
aviation industry did not know what was
did
going to
not
happen.
know. Yeah, it was like the
So
worst possible time. So I was like, okay. But fast forward, I knew that like, corporate aviation was definitely going to be booming because people were not traveling commercial anymore. And so that is why I went the corporate route. And I do not regret it, but I know what it takes. I know how much of an investment, and like what Mark was saying, like, you know, I knew that there was a shortage. So it was a great opportunity, but it was also like, So anyways, you can
yeah.
continue what you're saying.
So where was I?
You said, what am I gonna do?
All right, what am I gonna do, right? And then so and as she said, that idea of becoming a pilot was tossed around and taking trips at your commercial airline job, talking to some of the pilots. They would be like, hey, why don't you look into becoming a pilot? And I would always be like, yeah, I would love to do that, but I have my business and everything. And I was like, I felt like that was it. My business is it. Like, that's what I need to do. So I didn't know what I was going to do. Right. And I wanted to get my shop back up and running. I wanted to, I thought, like I said, I thought that was it for me. I was like, I'm really good at this. That's what I have to do. Um, and then circumstances changed in which that me starting up a shop again wouldn't have been feasible if things didn't work out the way we wanted them to. So yeah, I wanted to figure out what it is that we can do, but that's not going to be contingent upon our circumstances. So no matter what time, what place, whatever, it didn't matter what I was doing. And I felt like that's when you started suggesting that, there was not started, but you reiterated that there was a pilot shortage and everything. And I was like, oh yeah, I could become a pilot, and that's when I started doing research and started looking into it. And fast forward, this is where we are now. I joined an accelerated program and went through my flight training in 10 months. That's including my instructor certificates. And now I'm an instructor teaching other people to fly in less than a year. So that's who I am. Yeah. And that's how and why I got into aviation. That's exciting. Prior to that, we did do a lot of traveling together, and I love the traveling aspect. Yes. I always loved that. So
I did kind of like.
We did the same things as kids. We traveled to Jamaica. Not together, obviously. We traveled to Jamaica. We did road trips with the family.
Well, you didn't mention that your family's from Jamaica, too. Yes. So his parents are also from Jamaica. And so we both have that in common. Mm-hmm. But also, like, traveling, like, I was a flight attendant. I still am a flight attendant. And I used to take him on my trips with me, and it would be really fun. He would go on my layovers with me. We would have so much fun. And even outside of my layovers, like, we would just plan trips a lot. Like, we flew everywhere together, and it was so much fun. Yep. So we definitely had like really cool adventures that we'll talk about throughout the podcast episodes, but also just, we both fell in love with flying even more because we did it together and we got to explore the world together. So I think it made us love travel even more than we kind of already did. And I, like I said, I'm already a flight attendant, so I already loved flying. You kind of have to love it to work in it, because if you don't, you hate it. So you have to really love traveling and love aviation and enjoy what you're doing, but also enjoy like the lifestyle, because it's not for everyone. And we'll get into that in another episode, but just the life of and what it takes to actually be in this industry. Like, before you sign up, like, there's a whole lot that goes into it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
As a flight attendant, and you said that you have to love flying.
I think you kind of do.
But Is there, because I have heard of people that are like flight attendants stuff that actually they have a fear of flying, but is there anything that you could think of that could be like an ulterior motivation in order to being a flight attendant besides like what if there was a flight attendant that is afraid of flying, but there's something that they love more that they're willing to
So,
endure that fear?
okay. So, first of all, I feel like people who have a fear of flying, and the reason why I put quotations around it, because I don't think it's a fear of flying. I think it's a fear of no control.
Hmm.
Because they're not in control of the aircraft, so they are putting their trust and support in the pilots and the flight attendants to make sure that they get there safely. You know, the pilots are the ones that are flying the plane. The flight attendants are the ones that's going to have to save you if, God forbid, something happens in the case of an emergency. So I feel like people who are afraid of flying are afraid of the lack of control that they don't have. So to me, I think like the more you familiarize yourself with the airplane that you're flying on, which literally if you book your ticket right now, it's going to tell you the airplane that you're flying on, the number of seats, all these different things. People don't really pay attention to that. They just get on the plane. But you actually can find out a lot about the aircraft that you're actually going to be flying on way before you board the flight. And that might like ease your mind a little bit to kind of familiarize yourself with the emergency exits and things like that. And just the way the plane is laid out and like, you know, what that plane may be equipped with. Like some planes are equipped with life vests that are under the seat. Some planes have airbags that are like in the seatbelt that goes across you versus across your hip. There's so many details that go into it. There's certain doors that are open different ways based on the type of aircraft. So like if you familiarize yourself with that, like that'll make your travel experience with the plane, at least in particular, a lot smoother and less stressful. Um, Also, you know, if you believe, if you're a believer, you can also pray about it. You can also find solace knowing that like you're protected that way. Um, and I feel like to answer your question, Mark, about a flight attendant who may be afraid of flying but still love being a flight attendant, I think that the other part that they could be in love with is just not having a 9 to 5, having a different type of schedule and being able to explore and being in different
Places.
environments. Yeah,
Hmm.
because I feel like a lot of people who are flight attendants who did it later in life, or not even later, but like as a second career, um, are usually people who come from a corporate environment where they're working a 9 to 5 in an office or in a cubicle, and they wanted something different. They wanted something exciting, and so they're willing to deal with the time in the air to be able to experience a day that's different, a day that may be in a different city, and you get to have the best views, like the best office views that you'll ever experience. I think that's probably what may make it easier for them. So
Okay.
yeah. And
So
different crews. You don't have to go to the office and see
I
the
see the
same
same people.
people. You know, it's literally everything about aviation is
That's kind of like why
is
some
just
pilots say they'd rather do cargo because they get to fly
exactly.
boxes and boxes don't talk back.
They don't talk back. But yes, so I hope that answers your question. So we talked about who we are, why we got into aviation, and do we want to talk about how we met?
This is going to take
We
a
don't have to
while.
do that. We could, I mean, but people always ask. So
Okay.
people always say, "Oh,
I'll,
did you guys meet in the skies?" But I think we kind of
yeah.
covered it a little bit, where it's like you said that we were already dating when he decided to become a pilot. So obviously, we did not meet in the skies. And hopefully, you
Right.
guys were able to decipher that. But if you didn't, we did not meet flying. I have been a flight attendant way longer. Mark and I met before I became a flight attendant, actually in college, which he didn't even go to my college, but that's another story.
Define go to your
You
college.
weren't a student, you weren't paying tuition.
But yet I had access.
He had access to my college through his fraternity brothers, okay? But anyways, long story short, we met at a party in college. We were friends at the time
Hmm.
and kind of
just got,
in and out of
graduate,
contact.
in and out of contact,
After
kind of.
graduating and all that stuff.
We're
Yeah.
cool on socials, but like I said, socials, like I feel like Instagram just came out. Well, we sound old. But Instagram like just came out when we first met.
Instagram came out 2010.
I started college in 2010.
Right, and then we met 2011 while you were when we both were in college. But
right, so literally Instagram just came out. There was no Snapchat.
And if you didn't have an iPhone, you weren't getting Instagram.
It
came out for Android later.
I always had iPhone. He was team Android. I converted him over to iPhone. So, anyways, was there Twitter? I think Twitter. Yeah, Twitter existed.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter was around. Yeah, because Twitter was popping at the
Twitter
time.
was out before Instagram.
Twitter was popping. Twitter was twittering. Okay. Twitter was out. Instagram had just came out.
Mm-hmm. Snapchat was later.
Snapchat didn't come out yet. So, anyways, we sound really old. It sounds crazy how innovative and how fast
times have changed.
Like, wow. Anyways, with that being said, we met in college. We didn't speak for a while, and then fast forward to 2016.
2017.
Yes. We got reacquainted, went out for dinner. He asked me out on a date, y'all. Went out to dinner, and the rest is kind of history. What, am I missing something? Because you're smiling.
No.
I'm just, I mean, if you want to tap in, you could tap in.
And she slid to the DMs.
First of all, we did not slide into anybody's DMs. Let's start there.
Okay, no, that's not what happened.
Don't try to. No, I would. If I did, I would say it. I did not slide into his DMs, guys. Go ahead.
It was just a congratulatory message.
Yes. So we were friends on social, right? Yeah. At that time, I was really popular on Snapchat. I really loved using Snapchat. I would kind of snap all of my travel adventures, like, being a flight attendant. It was I was a few years into being a flight attendant at the time, but I really enjoyed like sharing my experiences on Snapchat. And so he was also on Snapchat, and he did this cool award show where he was a freelance photographer.
It was a red carpet premiere for Marvel's Luke Cage. Yeah,
he had to plug that in, but yes, he did that, and I was like, oh, congrats. And then, it
was a catch up. Hey, how you been? And we should catch up sometime. Mm-hmm. And then that turned into going out for dinner.
Yeah, no, you invited me out on a date, as you should.
But you said yes.
And I said yes, sure, why not? I didn't think it was anything crazy, but yeah, we did. We went on a date.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here we are.
And the rest is history.
So, anyways, that's how we met. And that's why we're still together. And yeah, we've been kicking it together ever since. And yeah, so you kind of learned about who we are, where we're from, our background, why we got into aviation, why we love aviation. And so here we are starting a podcast together. And what you should expect is we're going to talk about all of our experiences in terms of travel tips, adventures that we've gone on, hidden gems that we've discovered, and what we're currently discovering, and just new things. We'll also discuss what it's like in the day in the life of a flight attendant and a pilot. When you're going into aviation, there's so much more than what people think that aviation is. They think it's just like airlines. Like, you can work in so many fields. It's insane.
Just like you said, from the pilot standpoint, right? Mm-hmm. You can be a skydive pilot. Yes. You can be an aerial survey pilot. Yeah. You can be a medevac pilot. Mm-hmm. Literally, you fly patients and organs and medical equipment from one place to the other.
Yes, you can.
You can be
you could be a helicopter pilot.
Like, you can be there's so military pilots. You can be
a flight medic. There's literally so much you can do. It's mind blowing,
and
because
then different type of planes that you could fly. It's just
the possibilities are so endless. And so when people are like, "Oh, I want to be a flight attendant," like, girl, you don't have to be a commercial flight attendant. You could also be a corporate flight attendant. You could work for an owner. You could work for a family. You know
somebody that never been a commercial flight attendant.
Yes, I do. Like, you don't
I've always
have to
been a
go
corporate flight
right,
attendant.
and you can work between regionals. You can work for mainline. You can work like you can work solely for a family or a client.
Mhm.
There's so many different areas. Like, you can work in the government. Like,
Yeah.
the possibilities
Yeah.
are so endless.
The president needs flight attendants.
He does. He does. It is. He's true.
Yeah.
You could work. You could do contract work where you're working for like a tour or a season. Like, the possibilities are endless. And I think that's what's going to be really excited about this podcast is that we get to give exposure to the wonderful, vast,
multifaceted
world of
aspects of
right.
aviation.
Yeah. And like career opportunities that you can experience and thinking why. Like, I feel like, especially like for us as minorities, like we didn't see people like us doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
So as we are in this environment and we're in this atmosphere learning, we're also like, we want to bring exposure to that. We want to be able to bring awareness to the fact that you can do it too. People who look like you can be an airline pilot or can be a military pilot or can work in corporate or work for a specific client or, there's so many things that you can do. And I want people to know that it's never too late. You're not too old. You're not too young. Like you can literally start pursuing it like at any age, at any time.
The youngest you could become a pilot is the age of 17. You can have your pilot license before getting your driver's license.
Before you graduate high school, pretty much.
Yeah.
So anyways, it was just a little bit of what to expect. You'll also be able to expect us talking obviously about our relationship, how we navigate just, our schedules, what it's like to be an aviation couple, how to spend time.
The ups and downs.
Literally the ups and the downs of our
lives. It's not always sunshine and rainbows, but we make it work.
It's not. Also just like our schedules, like scheduling things out, time management, and how we do that together as a couple, how we still find time to spend quality time with each other, but also give each other space. It's just so much that goes into it, but we're excited about it because our friends, if you know us, you know that we've been doing this for a while, and now it's a whole other layer of challenge because now I'm adjusting to him being a pilot, whereas I've always been the one traveling away, and now we're both traveling. So it's new for me too.
It's gotten easy for one of us, and it's gotten hard for the other.
You have to understand.
I've been used to it.
We've been dating for 6 years now, and I've been a flight attendant the entire time. So for me, I'm used to being like, bye, babe, I'll see you later. Or, hey, I'm going on a trip. I'll see you when I get back. We'll hang out when I get back. Now it's like, wait, you're leaving out too? Like, what do you mean? And might I add, we also have a dog. So that's a whole other sector that goes into it. So we'll talk about our schedules, what it's like being away from each other, how to give each other space. Also, one thing that's really important to me is being fit to fly, things that you need to know about just taking care of your health. Very important to me. Also on my platform, Jet Executive, being fit to fly is literally like probably the most important thing you should ever do prior to you even going to work, is just making sure that you are actually good to fly mentally, physically, emotionally. Very, very important. And we'll dive into that. So, with that being said, we want to end our episode with our cruising gratitude, which is something we do at Jet Executive as well. But cruising gratitude is a phrase or action that you do that helps keep you sane, keeps things afloat. It's like a phrase, action that stays in your mind that really just keeps you leveled throughout your life and your travels. So I'll go first.
Good.
My cruising
Ladies first.
Thank you. My cruising gratitude is that I am grateful to have someone that supports me. Mark, my partner, he supports me in anything that I do. I told him I want to be a pilot. He's like, I'll teach you. I told him I want to do a podcast. He's like, let's do it. And so I'm grateful for someone that supports me unconditionally, who loves me, and who just genuinely cares about whatever I say I want to do. I said I want to move. I said I want to do this. I want to do that. He might think I'm crazy at first, but then he'll be like, let's do it. So thank you.
I don't like you. I know we just went for that for me telling I don't like her. I don't like her because I was trying to be the cute one and be like, my cruising gratitude is you. But yes, I am grateful for you. I'm grateful for all that you have done, all the things that we do together. And yeah, yes, you're going to become a pilot one way or another because um trust me, when I was going through to get my flight instructor license, it was the hardest one to get, and my motivation was the fact that I knew you want to become a pilot, and I knew it would make it easier if I was able to teach you. So,
Which he has already taught me. He's given me.
yeah,
I
intro
was his
flights.
first student,
Yep.
and it was my first flight, so that
It
was
was
really
her first
exciting.
flight in a small plane.
Yes, when I say
Which-
first flight, like first flight of instructing,
Yeah,
like it's literally in my logbook, which
it's close by.
I'm gonna go grab it so you guys can see it because it's really cute. Okay, so he got me this cute logbook.
She said she wanted a pink logbook.
It's pink,
So I found
guys.
her pink logbook.
And he actually like wrote my first log in there. So can we put this on the camera? Is that allowed? Tail numbers on it.
It's fine.
Yeah, so I have my first hour.
1.1.
You need to get me a new logbook because I forgot that you messed that up.
I told you I was going to get it.
Yeah, you do need to
Jeez.
get me a new one.
She has the first 1.1 hours of instruction.
Yay! So I am officially I'm getting instruction from a pilot. So I'm a pilot in training at this point. So yes, I got my first hour of flight training and I've been learning ground school. There's so much that goes into it. So he got me a logbook. So now we both have logbooks. And I'm gonna be a pilot. So anyways, with that being said, we thank you for listening. If you made it to the end of this episode, thank you for listening to our first episodes of Flight Decks and Jump Seats. The inaugural flight. Also, if you want to follow us for more, definitely follow our Instagram page at Flight Decks and Jump Seats. You can also follow my business page, Jet Executive, which is all about a flight attendant who found balance and is helping other aviation professionals find balance as well.
That's JETXECUTIVE.
Yes, sir. And where can they follow you?
They could follow me on, Flight Decks and Jump Seats, like you said, but also Mr. Travelin. That's MrTravelyn.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to follow my personal page, I'm all about Pilates. That's my thing. So you can follow
Pilates pilot.
The Pilates pilot. Listen, my bio literally says a flight attendant who found balance, has a podcast, and does Pilates. Like that's what I do. But you can follow me at Keisha Rose, KEISHA, and Rose like a flower. And that's all we have for today. So
I think that's all we have.
Yes,
that is
thank
the first episode.
Yes, thank you guys for listening to our inaugural episode, and we will see you next time
on Flight Decks and Jump Seats.
But you were gonna say prepare for landing.
Flight attendants prepare for landing.
All right. Cool.